Have you ever really stopped to think about the music in My Singing Monsters? It's this living, breathing thing that you build yourself. So, how in the world do you take that and press it onto an album? Well, it's not as simple as you think. We're about to dive into the surprisingly complex world of monster made music and its official soundtrack. So, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with how the monsters actually make their music, and then we'll break down an iconic island song. After that, we'll see how that whole interactive experience got turned into a static album, dig into the official remixes, check out the second volume, and finally look at the tunes that we're still waiting for.
All right, first things first, let's get right to the heart of what makes the music in this game so special. It's built on this brilliant idea where the players are basically the composers, and the monsters, they're your own personal living, breathing orchestra. And here's the magic trick. Every single monster you hatch and place adds its own unique musical part. Some lay down a beat, others carry the melody, a few provide vocals. Your island song is literally built piece by piece, monster by monster. It makes the whole thing feel alive. Now, to really wrap your head around how this works, there's no better way than to look at the OG tune, the one everyone knows, Plant Island. Let's pull this song apart, piece by piece. Every great song has to start with a solid foundation, right? On Plant Island, it all kicks off with the rhythm section. You get that driving beat from T-Rocks and Drumpler, a little extra percussion from Noggin, and then those first little hints of melody sneak in from Potbelly and Punkleton. This is the bedrock of the whole track. And from there, things really start to take off. The main chorus comes to life with Mammoth's classic Bum. You get Bogart's awesome cello-like strings, Toejammer's little doo-wops, and of course that spooky, floaty sound of the Ghost hanging over everything. The next phase is all about adding texture and depth. You get Furcorn's sweet little voice, Clamble's cymbals crashing in, and Shrub's beatboxing, and suddenly the song goes from a simple tune to a much richer, more complex arrangement. And finally, the last layers bring it all home. But the song doesn't just keep adding parts. It's dynamic. Monsters come in and out. You get the deep, booming voice of the Entbrod, the funny warble of Maw, and then the epic electronic power of the Webbox. It all comes together to create that massive sound you hear in the game. Okay, so that brings us to a really interesting problem. The music in the game is totally interactive. It depends on what you do. So how on earth do you capture that feeling on a fixed, static soundtrack? Well, the folks at Big Blue Bubble decided to take on that exact challenge. And the answer was the official My Singing Monsters soundtrack, starting with Volume 1. This whole journey kicked off way back in October 2016 with the digital release of the first volume. Later on, they even dropped this super cool translucent blue vinyl for collectors. And then the universe expanded in a big way with Volume 2 in late 2021. And that first volume was packed with all the classics that players knew and loved. You had everything from the original 5 natural islands to some of the trickier ones, like Ethereal and Wooblin Island. But this is where things get really fascinating. The soundtrack isn't just a straight recording of the in-game songs. They're actually unique official remixes. Yeah, according to fans who really dug into these tracks, the team didn't just hit record. They remixed certain parts, they extended solos, and get this, they even slipped in early unused beta sounds that you literally cannot hear anywhere in the game itself. So let's jump back to Plant Island for a second. If you listen to the soundtrack version, Punklinton's part is actually longer. Maw is using an early beta version of its sound. Even the background music from the castle is different. They're small changes, but they make the album a totally unique experience. And sometimes the differences are huge. On the Volume 1 version of Earth Island, Furcorn is just gone, completely missing. Rare Webbox has different lyrics, Drumpler has a whole new beat, and they even used an early, scrapped track for Clamble. It's like listening to an alternate universe version of the song. So, 5 years after that first release, the musical universe got a whole lot bigger with the much-anticipated release of Volume 2. And this was a massive deal for fans. It added a whopping 10 major island songs that were totally missing from the first album, finally bringing them into the official collection. So, Volume 2 brought in all of the fire and magical islands, plus fan favorites like Celestial Island and Starhenge. But what's really cool is it also gave us updated versions of the original islands, this time with the weirdos and their lyrics and the little percussive dipsters. But you know how it is. Even with 2 full volumes of music, the most dedicated fans out there started noticing. Hey, there are still some tunes from the monster world that we haven't heard on an album. So what's the deal?
It turns out there are actually very specific reasons for each one. Sugarbush Island? That's a copyright thing. Seasonal Shanty just wasn't finished in time for Volume 2. And islands like Amber and Mythical, they didn't even exist in the game when the album came out.
The story behind Sugarbush is actually pretty cool. The collaboration they did with the musician Christian Bush had a special agreement. His monster-fied song could only exist inside the game. That's it. So a soundtrack release was just never on the table. So, when you step back and look at the big picture, the My Singing Monsters soundtrack is way more than just a collection of songs. It's kind of like a living document, a snapshot of the game at different points in its history, and it's full of these exclusive remixes and hidden beta sounds that make it a real treasure for any fan.
And all of this leads to one final awesome question. With new islands popping up all the time and some of the older ones still waiting for their remix debut, what kind of amazing new sounds and weird surprises could a future Volume 3 possibly hold for us?